One man, 100 guests, 1,000 drinks. Drinking with Jason.
Welcome to Drinking with Jason, episode number 3. This week we have horror author Hunter Shea.
So nice to be introduced without having to arg.
Oh yeah, I should have had you do that. That's right.
Oh God, no, please.
Hunter is the author of, what, 7, 8 books now?
8 books right now are out, yeah.
Eight books, and operates with his partner in crime, Jack Campisi, the Monster Men podcast. And that's actually how I met you. I was searching YouTube for horror author interviews, and the Monster Men popped up.
All right. See, at least we're good for something.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking to ourselves most of the time.
You guys have like a monopoly on horror podcasts on YouTube. There's like none.
Are there really none?
I can't find like any. And I spend all day on YouTube. I don't do shit. So
we have to capitalize on this.
Yeah,
Damn,
really.
What are we doing?
So Hunter is apparently reliving his college years because he has us drinking Rolling Rock tonight.
I love me my Rolling Rock. Hey, you got to appreciate that I didn't tell you that I want, like, Johnny Walker Blue. And then
I was expecting some super expensive craft beer. So
nah, I'm a total beer lowlife when I want to be.
yeah, I haven't had Rolling Rock in a long time. So
It's like Schaefer. It's the one beer to have when you're having more than one. In fact, you can probably have 12, and all you're going to do is pee a lot.
Right. It's one beer to have if you run out of paint thinner. No, I'm kidding. Actually, Rolling Rock's not that bad. So I guess we should just jump right into it. How did you come up with? So I should tell everyone I've been on the Monster Men twice now, and
Yeah, we want to have you on more.
it's basically just this with less swearing and dedicated to horror. And
Yeah, you know what? I'm so glad I can say fuck right here, because our theory was when we started Monster Men was, if we're gonna, it's kind of like a TV show in a way with a cheap ass studio, and if we're gonna do it, if people watch it, let them at least think we can be kind of professional about it. So that's why when we drink, the beer is off camera, and even Jack has bleeped me a couple of times, but we're really careful about what we say when we go back and forth. But it gets really hard in the end of the day when we're on episode 6, and I'm like 10 beers in.
Sure.
I'm like,
Well, I remember when I was on, you guys had told me beforehand you try not to swear on it, and then like 3 minutes in, I was like, yeah, this fucking movie.
oh, and it was great. It liberated me. I was like, yeah, fuck it. It sucks, right? Shit.
As soon as I said it, I was like, son of a bitch, I just can't filter myself at all.
No, that was awesome. That was like the freest I've ever been on an episode of Monster Men. So thank
That's
you.
hilarious. Hey, man, I swear when I can. So what made you decide to start a horror podcast?
Jack and I worked together. Oh my God, it's probably 12 years ago we started working together. We don't work together anymore, but at the time, it turned out all the things that we liked and did as kids. I mean, even though I grew up in New York, he grew up in Connecticut in a nice area, and I was in a pretty nice area, but we experienced the same things, but then diverged in other ways. It was like I was the negative of Jack, whereas, we both went to see Dawn of the Dead and Kentucky Fried Movie as a double feature when we were 10. Yeah, but, after Jack saw the movie, he went home, and then he went to, like Bible camp or something. And I went to the reservoir, stole dynamite, blew the crap out of a field, and tooled around on motorcycles and stuff that we just scammed off the street. So
Nice.
we had like this same passion about things, and we used to just talk about horror stuff all the time. And Jack was like, we should do a show someday. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool, but where the hell are we going to do it? So when I got my first book deal with Sam Hain and my book Forest of Shadows was coming out, Jack said, this is a good opportunity. This is like a promotion ability, tool we could use. Why don't we just shoot like 1 or 2 episodes? We'll talk about something about horror. I'll put your book cover up there. People will get to know you and stuff, and maybe we'll do a few episodes. So, we sat down. If you see the very first episode, it's like, "Hi, welcome to Monster Men." Hey.
It's like the intro of every one of these so far.
We were so stiff and didn't know what we were doing.
Was this pre-ARG?
Pre-ARG. There was no ARGing in the beginning.
Which I should mention, at the beginning of each of these podcasts, Jack introduces the show, and then Hunter does a weird ARG sound differently each time. It's like half pirate, half six-pack deep.
Exactly.
Zombie thing.
We just did one where we got my daughter a microphone and an amplifier for Christmas, so I used the microphone. I blasted Jack's ear out on that one. Like after the episode, he's like, "Oh man, that was ridiculous."
So it started as a promotional opportunity, basically, and you've just kept it going for a couple years.
Yeah, it's going to be 4 years this summer, believe it or not.
No kidding.
Yeah, we've shot at least 80 episodes, and we have ideas. We want to do more like going out. We want to just get out and just show different places, like maybe like an abandoned towns or things like that, because the episode we did on the ghost of the White Lady at the Union Cemetery, that's got like thousands of hits.
Wow.
And we get a lot of email about that, so I said, let's go out and seek strange places.
Is this basically an excuse for you guys to get together and drink beer like once a month or something now?
Yep. This is how it works. Jack comes to my house. My daughters are our PAs, so they set up the whole set and everything, because there's a ton of, I mean, you've seen some of these sets. There's books, there's movies, there's memorabilia and stuff. I mean, like the living room was covered in this stuff, and Jack brings his bags over. And then we shoot like 4 to 6 episodes, drinking the whole way through, having a good time. And then when it's over, we order in food. We just fire up the TV, watch 2 or 3 horror movies with my wife, and then we just call it a day. But I mean, it goes all day. It's like from noon until like midnight.
You shoot 4 to 6 at a time. Wow.
Oh yeah. We change shirts in between episodes, so you don't know.
That's about the most technical thing you guys do.
Yeah, we change shirts and we change hats. I'll put on a hat and a bandana, no hat, whatever. And then that way people think it's a different, because if you change the way you look and you change what's behind you, then it looks like it's a whole different day,
Yeah, I had absolutely no idea you shot that many. I figured you probably shot 2 or 3 or something, just to save time, but...
We try to shoot for 6, but usually around like 5, we're like my father, when he used to watch these, he would always know. Because we don't publish them in the order that we shot them. So he'll know when we've come to the end of what we have, and then he'll know that we had to shoot some on Saturday, whatever, and in a week there'll be a new one, and he'll watch that new one and say, "So that's the last one you shot, right?" And I'll say, "Well, how did you know?" He goes, "I know when my son is shit-faced." I was like, "Oh." I said, "Well, as long as the world doesn't know, we're all right."
That's hilarious. I love that.
Cracking another one. Good beer, like fine wine, comes in twist-offs.
Man, you're putting me to shame. I should have brought the whole 6-pack up here.
I think I have it back here.
So you started it when you got your first novel published? Was that the deal?
Yeah, it was my first novel that was published by a publisher that I wasn't ashamed of, in the genre that I wanted to write in.
Oh, so you had other stuff out with like micro presses or something?
Yeah, I did stuff oh my God, probably 14 years ago with Publish America. They've changed me.
Isn't that a vanity press?
It is, but it isn't. Where they pay you.
Oh, okay. So it's not a total scam.
No, they pay you $1, and it comes taped to your contract. And
okay.
They did give you a trade paperback copy of your book, and it was something that you could sell, which was awesome. They didn't really have any editing. Their art department was crap. And I did one book with them, and as soon as that book was published, I gave them another one. And in the middle of the first book coming out, I realized that they had no accounting whatsoever. I was getting nothing, no royalties.
Oh.
Like they would tell me, "Oh yeah, you didn't sell any books this month," and I was like, I was just with about 20 people who bought the book.
Oh, lovely.
So, yeah, when the second book came out, I didn't promote it at all. I just let it fester. I did nothing with it, and then I was just disgusted.
Have you tried to get the rights back to it? Them?
I have them back.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, they had the rights for like 5 or 7 years, I forget, but I have them back.
Have you republished them?
One of them, I republished. I reworked the whole book. It's Evil Eternal came out. That was my second book with Sam Hain, but I had published that with Publish America years ago under a different title, and it was much smaller the first time around.
Okay.
And worse.
What about the second book?
That one is a oh my God, it's a dark comedy. It's about a guy who owns a fetish club, and his partner is the son of the head of the mafia, who's also a closet crossdresser.
I
don't
like
know
it already.
That book is really funny. I got to admit, I actually reread it recently, and I'm like, this book is freaking good. But who's gonna pick this thing up?
Sure. Sounds
You
like
know?
a self-publishing candidate.
Yeah, it's got like a guy who's a UFO nut and an Australian drug dealer and a dominatrix, and it's like all over the map. But the research was fun.
Yeah, I think you need to publish this. I want to read this one.
I will send
Sounds
you a
interesting.
copy so you can read it. And this is back when they didn't even have ebooks, so all I have is printed copies of these things.
Oh man, yeah, I'm gonna have to read this. This sounds interesting. I like it. So that was your second book. What was the first book you had with Sam Hain?
The first book I had with Sam Hain was Forest of Shadows. That's a ghost novel. It's about a guy who he's with his wife. Him and his wife just had a baby. They live out on Long Island, and one night he's like, he's feeling a little randy. It's been a while since he's been with his wife, so they're trying to get together, and the baby's disrupting things, and he's getting pissed, and she's out of the mood. So they have a fight. He goes on the couch. The next day he wakes up and he's like, I'm going to make it up to her. I'll get her breakfast in bed. I'll take care of the baby. And he goes to wake her up and she's dead. Just a young woman who just died in her sleep. And as he's trying to shake her awake, his phone is ringing, and it's his mother-in-law on the phone because she kept track of their lottery numbers, and he won a $20 million lottery that exact same moment.
Oh.
Right. So you go from there to 5 years later where you've got a guy who's got all the money in the world, so he's quit his job and everything, but he's become a complete recluse who's full of these incredible anxieties. He's got a 6-year-old daughter now that he has to take care of, and he's afraid to go to sleep. He's afraid to go out of the house. He's just riddled with panic attacks. But he's obsessed with the afterlife because, I never spell it out, but I assume readers will figure it out that he's trying to, find out where his wife is at this point.
Sure.
And he has his former sister-in-law who's kind of like his best friend, and her baby son are helping him. And he takes all of them up to this haunted cabin up in Alaska that there were these stories of just weird stuff going on out there. And he figured, you know what? This would be my chance to get off all the meds. I'm going to take them to a place they'd never been before. I'm going to try to experience life, but I'm also going to search for what goes on after death. Naturally, it's a really bad idea. The town
sounds like the feel-good story of the year.
It is. It's lovely. The town is all Native American, and so when these white interlopers from New York come in, they are just completely unwanted. And just the shit hits the fan when he gets there. And I tell you, that book, I had the producers of Jennifer's Body and the producers of Rocky interested in it when it came out.
No kidding.
And they both said to me, or said to my agent, well, I really can't, I don't know if we can do this because it's going to cause a lot of trouble. And we were like, why? They're like, well, you made Native Americans bad. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, here we go.
So
yeah, son.
the rule is you cannot make Native Americans bad, even though, and I'm not even going to say Native American, Indian, because my friend who is a full Ramapo Indian was the one who gave me the idea. He was like, we're just as fucked up as everybody else, so, you should make us the bad guy. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And, that's what killed it.
Really? So they didn't ask if you could change it to a bunch of honkies or something?
Oh, God. That would be funny. I could call it Forest of Honkies. Right off, man. No, it's on.
Right. Change it from, you said Alaska they go to?
Yeah, they go to
They just go to West Virginia instead.
You know what? Where were you when this was all going on? I could have done that.
You know, that always. Anytime I hear stories like this, it reminds me of the movie Big Picture with Kevin Bacon. You
Yeah,
ever seen that?
I
They keep
have.
changing his story, and it's more and more ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that movie.
West Virginia Hokies. That would have worked.
Yeah, perfect. So Sam Hain, their horror branch is fairly new, isn't it?
Yeah, it came out in 2011. In fact, Forest of Shadows was one of the first 4 books they put out. Because Sam Hain
Wow.
before that was strictly erotica and romance.
Sure,
Um,
that's how I knew their name. And when I'd heard they were doing horror, I was like, what?
yeah, me too. Because I had sold Forest of Shadows to my editor Don Dioria when he was with Leisure Books, Dorchester. They were putting out Brian Keene and Jack Ketchum and
Sure,
everybody.
he's probably the most well-known horror editor,
He has an incredible eye for talent. You know,
except in your case, obviously.
totally. I tell him all the time, "What the fuck were you thinking?" You know what? I did ask him one time, like, how the hell did my book make it out of the slush pile? Because I had no agent. I sent it only to him.
Really?
Yeah, I'd been a Leisure fan forever, and I was like, you know what? I only want to work with Don. So I sent it to him, and I mean, it took. My kids were really little at the time, so it was hard to write. It took me 5 years to write the book, and it took another 4 years to go from submitting a query letter to Don to getting accepted. So it was a 9-year ride with
You
that
sent
book.
it to him, and 4 years later, you heard back?
Yep. Well, no, dude, this is how it worked. I sent it to him. I sent the query letter.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I sent the query letter, and like a year later, he got back and he said, sounds really interesting. He goes, can you send me a synopsis? So I sent like a 10-page synopsis, and a year later, he came back and said, oh, can you send me the first 50 pages? And a year later, it was, can you send me the whole book? And then I got the acceptance when I thought I wasn't even thinking about writing anymore. Really, I was done.
Sure.
And yeah, he gave me the acceptance, and then that was in like May or June of 2010. And as I'm trying to sign the contract, my agent keeps going, well, I'm going to look over the particulars. Don't sign just yet. And then by August, the entire company imploded, and there were no more books.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I
but
remember Brian Keene has some great write-ups on the fallout of that and how they just screwed authors so bad.
blistering write-ups and accurate. I lucked out because I never signed the contract. If I had signed the contract, they would have owned the rights to my book that I probably still wouldn't even have now.
Right.
So Don, he kicked the can a while and looked for the best place to go. Ended up with Sam Hain because they gave him, I gave him the most creative leeway to do what he wanted to do to build a whole line, and he took my book along with him, and it was one of the first ones that came out with them.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting story. I didn't know you were close to being in with Leisure.
Yeah, man. There's a couple of us in Sam Hain who were right there, who had just been offered deals and ready to sign, and just fell apart.
So for those who don't know, Leisure in I guess really the 90s and the 2000s, right? They were
Yeah.
the name in horror beyond the ones everyone knows. Everybody knows Stephen King. Everyone knows Dean Koontz. Everyone knows Clive Barker. But the middle, I don't want to say middle of the pack guys. It sounds demeaning, but the guys your casual reader probably haven't heard of, but who were writing the most interesting books,
Right.
they were mostly with Leisure.
Yeah.
So,
Brian Keene and Jack Ketchum and Brian Smith, and I mean, oh my God, Richard Lehman. It was unbelievable what they were putting out.
right, it was really incredible stuff. So getting signed by them was like a dream come true for a lot of horror writers, but it's a good thing you kind of dodged that bullet.
I was suicidal when that. I remember we were in Maine on vacation, and there was like no Wi-Fi anywhere, and I kept going to libraries trying to find the status of what was going on. And while I'm on vacation, I found out that Dorchester completely went out of business. And we had tickets to go to Horrifying convention in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, like for 3 weeks
Another
after.
company that imploded.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember I met with Brian Keene and I met with Ketchum, and those were the two guys who talked me off the ledge because I was done. I was pissed. I was upset, and Brian was good because he told me just all the crap that went on and they deserve to die and all this stuff. And he gives you like that anger that you kind of need to go on. But Ketchum was cool because he goes, look, man, he goes, if Don liked you the first time, he's still going to like you. He'll take you wherever. And he's like, and if Don doesn't take you, obviously it's good enough for another editor. The two of them literally settled me down because I came to that conference in just a rage.
Because you were so close?
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing I wanted the most since 1995, and here it's 2010. I was there, and it just got taken away from me.
Well, at least you got to hang out with Brian Keene and Jack Ketchum.
This is true.
Had to be a decent time.
Yeah, that convention, we were outside, and I was talking to Brian Keene and J.F. Gonzalez, who just passed away, and Mary Sangiovanni, and some dude from MTV happened to be walking by, and Brian was like, that fucker owes me money, and just took off. And like, everyone was running to like pull away from this guy from MTV. And Mary Sangiovanni's watching my daughter, who's like all kind of scared about what's going on, and there's a little bit of scuffling on. And then literally it ends, and Brian turns like the faucet, and he had a thing to do, like he was talking to people, and he was just like, all right, man, let's do this thing. It was so wild.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he was
wow.
funny.
So then you went from, you've just been publishing with them until, was it last summer you had the book that came out, The Montauk Monster?
Yep.
Who was that with?
Yeah, that's with Pinnacle. That book did, oh my God, that did exceedingly well. Better than I could have expected.
Well, you got mass market paperback with that one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was,
That's
people were sending me
fantastic.
pictures. I'm in a Piggly Wiggly. I got the Montauk Monster. I was like, holy crap, really? I mean, that book was everywhere, which was awesome. I mean, that was I could take that one off the bucket list. If I never publish another paperback, I'll be happy because I did it. But
that's really cool. That's the one thing I'm really missing. I shouldn't say missing, but I would really like to go into a bookstore one day and my book's there, not have it been like I went and hand sold it to whoever.
Yeah,
it's got to be a good feeling.
It was a totally different experience. I did a lot of traveling last year, and everywhere I went into a Barnes & Noble, and every Barnes & Noble I went into, it was there, and like the new release rack and stuff.
So, you taking selfies like an asshole and all of those? I would have been.
I was taking pictures of it on the shelf, and I was doing a lot of facing if it wasn't sticking straight out.
Sure.
But yeah, that was a wild. It's funny because that book came about. You read my Swamp Monster Massacre, my love story about skunk apes in the Everglades.
Yeah, that was rough.
That book came about because the editor at Pinnacle read Swamp Monster Massacre, loved it, and gave me a 2-book deal to write Roger Corman-esque horror books for him.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, I even dedicated the book to the skunk apes in the very end because without them I wouldn't have the deal.
So. Do you have another one coming out with them?
I do. It's this is great. Whenever I say the title, I think of Gilbert Gottfried channeling Bela Lugosi.
What?
It is called Tortures of the Damned.
Did you come up with that title, or did your editor?
It wasn't me. My title for this was called Run Like Hell. And,
okay. I was going to say, the current title sounds like those, what are they called, Giallo or whatever, the Italian horror crazy-ass movies.
Totally.
That's what it sounds like.
Well, it fits in this year because my first book out this year with Sam Hain is Island of the Forbidden. So I'm very Lugosi-esque with these titles.
Yeah, you're going old school.
Totally.
So when does that one come out?
That comes out the end of July. Because we did so well with Montauk Monster in the summer. Publishers Weekly actually called it the one of the best reads of the summer for thrillers.
I saw that. How much you pay him for that?
Nothing. We couldn't believe it. We were dancing to
Rolling Rock.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you 1 Rolling Rock and 2 PBRs. But yeah, the new book comes out end of July, and it's a post-apocalyptic story. I had to write it in a really short amount of time, and I'm like, I don't have time to do research and stuff. So
Post-apocalyptic, you just make that shit up.
Dude, I said it in my town, and I just blew the shit out of the place. And I have like a little a family that survives. The whole concept is, what if you survive the apocalypse, and you come out, and there's no communication, there's no electricity, and there's no knowing who did it or why, and how far it goes. So it's when this family emerges, they're trying to just get out of the city and just find anybody that can give them an answer. But little did they know that one of the things that was dropped also makes all the animals murderous. So I have them being attacked by cats, horses from the racetrack, hawks.
That's a nice device.
Yeah, you know what? Everything I do with Pinnacle is he just says, just channel your inner Roger Corman. And just
that's too cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. My editor once called me. He said, "You're my guilty pleasure," because we both love those old B movies and monster movies and stuff.
But it sounds like it sold well, so it might be his financial pleasure too.
Yeah, little did I know, Pinnacle sells a ton of westerns, like straight up westerns.
I didn't even know anybody sold westerns now.
He says when they put them in the Midwest and like Walmarts, he says you put a case of those things and they're gone in a weekend.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they're not bad. I've been reading a bunch of them lately.
Huh.
And they're all like Ghost
I can't
Rider.
do the research for a full-on western. I did a zombie western, but you kind of fudge the details a little bit on that one. So nobody's gonna read that shit anyway.
I did a western last year, and I think I did like 3 hours of research. I wanted to make sure that did the Union Pacific Railroad make a stop here in this town and stuff like that. But I think I watched so much John Wayne stuff growing up, it just was like osmosis.
Sure. With the western, the biggest thing I found is you got to get the gun details right, because you get those guys who know about guns, and they will just eviscerate you if you got one detail wrong.
Oh.
So.
Look, I realize this. I'm going to get eviscerated on something anyway every time. So whatever, bring it on.
Well, I actually grew up in Western PA, so like my dad had like 50 guns. So I actually know a lot of this shit. I just, sometimes it slips through. But so in Devoured, I actually put some nomenclature in that wasn't correct because the main character Lance doesn't know shit about guns.
Right.
So he's calling like a magazine a clip and things like that because he doesn't know. But he learns it through the other books. But I realized that was a horrible mistake because I'm getting like these guys who are like, go back to your Xbox, you fucking authors, you don't know shit, Like,
yes, sir.
Okay.
That's when you got to pull a John Lovitz and go, it's acting.
Right. Yeah, I'll go back to my Xbox, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, look, we're going to get things wrong. You can research forever. After a while, you just got to sit down and write, and sometimes you're going to get stuff wrong. Big deal.
Was the Montauk Monster horror or thriller or kind of both?
It's both. It's categorized as a thriller, but I mean, it's a horror novel. I mean, the fine line was when we wrote that, it's a thriller, it's got to have action, all the stuff. Yeah, it has monsters, but you have to base them in some sort of scientific fact or something in history.
Not strictly paranormal.
Exactly. So that was such an easy thing to do because yes, there are weird things that wash up on the beaches of eastern Long Island. Yes, there is the Plum Island facility that was run by a Nazi initially who was making weapons-grade biochemicals and stuff. So there was just so much that I could use in there that was quote-unquote real that, it was a thriller. But it's...
Sure. Now, do you consider your stuff strictly horror otherwise except that book, or do you kind of cross over into thriller? So, like, for example, when I read Swamp Monster Massacre, that was horror, but it was so fast-paced, it felt like a thriller in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Somebody told me that, like, yeah, you do a lot of fast horror.
Sure.
I was like,
that's
a
what I
category.
do, too.
Fast horror.
Fast horror.
But it is true.
I do something similar, so I was just curious.
Yeah, absolutely you do. Because you set it up, and then you got your first act. If you do it like a 3-act play, you've got your first act, and you're establishing everything, and then you got your second act where things are starting to boil. And then, to me, once the third act hit, That's like, you've crested the roller coaster and you're going down at 100 miles an hour.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've actually had
absolutely.
to take Xanax after I've written like the last 2 chapters of books because I'm so jazzed. I can't settle down. It's weird.
Really? That's all that
Yeah.
cocaine you're doing.
It could be. Hey, it worked for Stephen King.
I loved. Was it On Writing where he was talking about some of those stories, and he was just so coked up he doesn't remember a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And drinking a case of beer too, along with the coke.
Oh, that dude, I love him in so many ways. I can't even describe it.
I just reread it in December because I actually never finished it when
We
it
had
came.
talked about this. I think I was giving you shit for that because you told me you'd never read it.
So, thank God I got there to the raping of the 12-year-old girl. That was good. I'm glad I read that. But as I was reading it, I'm going, because you and I both know how the sausage is made, right? So after a while, you start to read things in a different way, and I'm going, this is such a coke-fueled fantasy right now. Like the whole book, this is like listening to a coke addict, the leg going a million miles an hour and describing every fucking thing in the room.
Right.
So I'm like, this is a 1,200-page book. That's a great 300-page novel.
Isn't that all his stuff? Like, he's just such a phenomenal writer. He's the only guy I will write whose books are always over 500 pages. Did I say he's the only guy I will write?
Yeah, I know what
All
you
right,
meant.
I'm just gonna keep drinking.
Take another sip.
I need another beer. Yeah, he's the only guy I'll read whose books are so long. I don't know what it is about his writing. It gets me. Even though there will be whole pages where I'm like, there's nothing going on here. But
Right.
man, when he's on, it is just incredible.
He is a master of characterization,
Yes.
and the master of
Feels
the
very
callback. He can describe a guy on page 200 and not come back to him till page 600, and the way he brings him back in, you know exactly who that is,
Yep.
and what that guy's motivations are, and what his quirks are. That he's incredible that way.
The voices of the characters, just the way they talk, the way they act. I mean, the guy is a literal master.
Yep, exactly.
But he's a long fucking winded master.
Yeah, well, look at the friggin' Game of Thrones guy.
Yeah, I won't read those because I don't think he's going to finish them.
He's not young.
That's my concern. Like, if you're taking 8 years between books, you're getting up there, man.
And now I don't even think I could read his books. Like, I read the first 4 books in a summer because a friend of mine said, and this is before the shows came out. He says, "You got to read this. These are really good." So he like throws the first one on my desk, and the whole desk like shakes. I'm like, yeah, what is this? So the first one, just the character pages were 10 pages long. And
oh man,
it's print. It's the smallest print you can put inside a book, and it's
yeah, it's like reading King. Get your magnifying glass.
Right, and I did it, but now I've had glasses now for the last couple of years. I don't think I could read those books. They'd be so frustrated because I'm like, what? Put the big the glass, the magnifying glass. I don't know. I couldn't.
That's why the Kindles are great.
Yeah, exactly. Just put it up so I have.
My wife reads with this giant font. Like, yeah, my wife has a 9-inch Kindle, and she has this giant font now, and she reads way faster than I do, and I just see her like flipping like rapidly. Like, why don't you make that a little smaller, for Christ's sake?
The boy went to the garden.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Maybe that's why she reads faster than me. I don't know.
She just has the illusion of reading faster.
So you enjoyed it, but you didn't think it was the masterpiece I was saying?
I don't think it was the shit. That's my official review. It wasn't my favorite King book. I'll put it that way. I thought it was just long-winded because I've been around enough coke addicts to be aggravated by the way they talk. So if I'm reading the way they talk, after a while I was like going, "Oh, Jesus Christ, take it down." Or
when I read that book, I was actually the age of the kids, or right around the age. I think I was maybe 12 when I read it, so I just totally identified with that stuff.
Dude, that's exactly what my brother-in-law said, and he's the one who bought me the book and made me read it because he was the same age as the kids.
I've read that 3 times now. I just absolutely love that. I mean, it takes me a season to read it, but
right. See, when that book came out, I was in college, so I was drinking and eating 10-cent wings. I didn't have time for reading.
Yeah, reading slows down a little bit in college between the hangovers and the.
I swear to God, I think I read one book in college, The Last Temptation of Christ.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I could read it like a day. But that was it, man.
I actually just listened to it in audiobook on Audible, and it was read by Steven Weber from Wings.
Oh, from Wings, yeah.
Yeah, he was the brother Brian.
Yeah.
He read it, and it was so ridiculously good. He just destroyed it. So, who knew if you get a professional actor to read your book, it sounds great.
Didn't he play Jack Torrance in the Shining miniseries?
Unfortunately, yes.
With that Campbell.
He was actually halfway decent as Jack Torrance, but that series was terrible.
Yep. Well, that was trying to give the people who thought Kubrick screwed the pooch a chance to enjoy the real Shining.
By people, you mean Stephen King and Stephen King alone.
And my mother-in-law.
Actually, I know a lot. The Shining movie.
I know a lot of people who. It's so weird. It's like.
That's one of the greatest horror movies ever.
Thank you. I can separate between the two because I think the book is great and I think the movie is great, and I think they're two totally different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know a lot of book lovers who cannot watch that movie because they're like, "Oh, that's just stupid. That's not the book." I'm like,
"Oh, no way." Jack Nicholson is scary as shit in that movie.
Dude, I don't even think he was acting.
I don't either. I don't think so at all. There's this one shot, I don't remember exactly where it is in the movie. It's when his descent into madness starts, and he's just staring out a window or at the wall or something, and they do this really slow zoom in on him, and he doesn't blink the whole time. He's just standing there. This dude is out of his fucking gourd.
I have a DVD of that, and they have a little documentary of the making of the movie, and you get to watch Kubrick breaking Shelley Duvall down until she's had an absolute nervous breakdown.
That poor woman.
Could you imagine Kubrick, who's a prick and a maniac, and you've got Nicholson, who I'm sure is high on anything he can find and out of his mind, and
chasing you around with an axe.
Yeah, exactly. Wendy,
I'm not gonna hurt you. Yeah, that movie's fantastic, and I'm a humongous King lover. I would read that book all the time, and I watch the movie all the time. They're two entirely different things, but they both work.
Yeah. Did you read Dr. Sleep?
I have not yet. In fact, it's right above me on a bookshelf here. I just haven't got to it.
I did. When Dr. Sleep came out, I read The Shining again, and then as soon as I hit the end of the last page of The Shining, I picked up Dr. Sleep and just went right through it. Really good.
Really? It was long, which is why I keep pushing it off, because I keep thinking I could read 3 books in the amount of time I read that.
You know what? Well, I got the hardcover, so the print was big enough for my eyes. But I read it in, I gotta say, 5 days.
Damn.
When he's working, to me, I plow through it. If it's clicking with him, to me, I read The Dome in 3 days, Under the Dome in 3 days.
I think I read that pretty fast too. And that book, you could murder someone by bludgeoning them with that.
I know. I gave it to my wife to read, and she has problems with her shoulders and wrists, and she was like, I can't hold this book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. No, I haven't read that yet. I'm really looking forward to getting to it. One of the things nobody warned me about, when you become an author, you have a bunch of people sending you books before they come out to read. Hunter Shea. And sometimes you don't get to the ones. Yeah, what was that? Actually, what's the name of that one that you sent me?
You know what? When I gave it to you, I just had a working title just so I could save it. But the name is now going to be I Kill in Peace.
I Kill in Peace. When's that come out?
I was just talking to my editor last week. That'll probably come out early 2016. Initially,
for Sam Hain?
Sam Hain, yeah. He wanted to put it out this year, but I have 3 books already slated to come out this year, and I was like, that's too much author fatigue. I'd be sick of me at that point. So we're moving ahead to next year.
Well, before I get on to something else, that book was fucking crazy. I'm reading this beside my wife, and I'm like, holy shit, this is super graphic in every way.
Thank you.
And it was well done. Well done.
Now, look, and you got to admit, it was short and sweet. And
I love horror novellas.
I think that's the horror works best in a novella, to
You
me.
really cut out a lot of the unnecessary. I call it unnecessary, but the writer has to be really good to make the slower parts interesting.
Right. Yeah. Which is why I tend to make mine fast horror. I
Absolutely.
gotta interest myself.
So I Kill in Peace, early 2016. I'll make sure I push that one because I really like that. That was well done.
And thank you for reading it. I can't wait to finish it up and send it out.
Now you have 3 other novels coming out this year. How do you write so fast? You have a full-time job.
You know what?
Okay.
The key is when you get the first book deal, all of a sudden everybody wants to give you time. Oh wait, so he isn't just dicking around in that room watching you porn. He's actually doing something.
Well,
So
you are watching you porn, but you're also
in between chapter breaks, just a little bit.
you have Word open on the side.
I just go look at my all-natural big tit amateur section, and then I move on.
Oh, wow, you've got it really granular there.
Oh,
Natural big tit amateur.
I could dig down deeper. We can throw in hirsute and whatever else.
You have your preferences saved.
Exactly. You know, I try to, if I'm working on a book, I try to write every day until it's done. And then I'll take a couple of weeks off and let it kind of germinate for a while and then dive back in. So there's not much
writing
room.
something else while you're letting the other one sit.
No. I totally clear my head. I can't do it. I've tried to do multiple books at the same time. I used to read Writer's Digest when I was trying to, become a writer, and they'd always say, well, if you get tired or if you get stuck on one thing, then always have another manuscript. And I would do that, and then that other manuscript would be left behind for 8 months, and then by the time I picked it up, I'm going, what the hell was I writing?
Yeah, I only work on one thing at a time, too. Otherwise, it just doesn't get done.
No, I can only write one at a time. I'll read like 4 books at a time, but I can't write anything more than one. So this year I said, oh, I'm going to take it easy. I'm just going to I'm going to finish up the novella that I started last year. I'm working on another book for Pinnacle for summer 2016, and I have an idea for Sam Hain that I'll give him in the fall. And I just had another publisher come to me and say, hey, do you want to write, a monster book for us? And I'm like, yeah. So
you're going to be with 3 publishers now.
Yeah, I got to fit that in somewhere, and then
turn it into Jonathan Mayberry.
Hey, he actually gave me a blurb for my first book, and I think we've used it on almost every book.
Case of Rolling Rock?
I don't think it cost anything.
Wow, that cheap bastard.
I think he's in Philly. It should have been a case of Yingling, right?
Yeah. Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah. My agent's also trying to get me to do a middle grade horror book, so if I can fit it in, I'll try.
Now, if horror actually sold in any volume, you'd probably be making a lot of money.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a lot of books.
You can't hitch your wagon to a worse genre in terms of making money.
It's true. It's so true. I try to explain to people, because for whatever reason, guys seem to all want to write horror or thrillers. And I get a lot of emails because I self-publish, so I've kind of built my own company with the publishing and I do everything myself, except editing and cover, because I can't edit my own stuff. It's actually embarrassing. And I get a lot of emails from people asking me how to make money writing books, and the first thing I tell them is don't write horror. Write something else to make money, and if you want to write horror, do that as a side thing, because it is so hard to make any money.
Yeah, this is, if we were writing about housewives getting plowed by gardeners, we'd be rich.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, you either do this because you love it or get the hell out.
Yep. I started writing right around the same time. My first guest, Elle Casey, she started writing right around the same time I did. She started self-publishing. She was doing young adult, so she was already making more money than me, a lot more money than me. But then she switched to romance, and New York Times bestseller list, asinine sums of money, that bitch. I was also a friend of mine I'd met online. We were giving each other's books blurbs. He was writing science fiction, like post-apocalyptic science fiction stuff. Fantastic writer. He started writing erotica with his wife, and they are ludicrously huge. Like they own a compound, and I mean they sell so many books it's disgusting.
See, I've talked to my agent about doing erotica because I mean I'm with Sam Hain, and they're publishing erotica, and I'll just I don't know write under some woman's
amateur, all natural.
Exactly. I'll make sure, but from what I've read of Sam Hain books, you got to have a lot of gay vampire dudes. There's a lot of those books.
The prose, I couldn't write the prose either. Like I couldn't write the story. It wouldn't be convincing. Like if I wrote romance, a woman wouldn't read that and find it convincing. But then even the prose, I couldn't do that either. It's just a different style of writing. So.
Well, one thing I learned, at least from what I've read, it doesn't necessarily have to be good.
It really doesn't seem like it has to be, but there's something it connects with people. It's like 50 Shades of Grey. Did you read that?
I didn't. I can't bring myself. Did you read it?
I read a couple chapters just to see. If something's taken off, I want to see what the deal is.
Right.
Yeah, that's one I do not understand. That and Twilight are like two things I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah, no. Either can I. Well, Twilight, for some reason, struck a chord with kids. I can't complain about the book because it got my youngest daughter into reading.
Yeah, I try not to complain. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't complain about 50 Shades of Grey. I do complain about Twilight, but probably because of the vampire thing.
See, with erotica, it's very easy. It's like, can you write a book that's light enough so it can be read with just one hand? I think if you would try to do Under the Dome and erotica, it wouldn't work because it would fall in the lap. It would knock their hand off their genitals. It would just
It'd break their leg. Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend about how he writes it. I was like, how do you do that? Like, I can't even read that stuff, let alone write it. And he has no issue with. Obviously, I didn't say their real name, but I don't want to put it out on the. They have a pen name, but they sell stupid amounts of books. Like in 1 month, they'll make what I'll make this year, easily, probably more than that.
Do they self-publish or do they have a publisher?
They self-publish for. In fact, I'm not sure. They might have gotten a paper-only deal lately, where they keep their ebook rights.
Right.
I'm not 100% certain, but I know when they were making their millions, it was self-publishing. Because if you're selling asinine amounts of money and you're getting 70%, that's asinine amounts of money. How many fucking beers have I had?
How they write a year? Let's get their model down. Let's figure them out here.
Oh, I was following, believe me, because I'm like, you fuckers. Because over the summer they were like really struggling. Their home was being foreclosed on, and then they took off, and now they have. I mean, they just bought like a vineyard. I mean, they own like half of Michigan. I think they live in.
Holy crap.
Yeah, they wrote a ton of books very quickly, and now they've slowed down because they don't have to. But yeah. So I mean, that's what I did. I wrote a lot of books as quickly as I could at the beginning too, and now I'm able to slow down a little bit. But it's possible. You just there's a lot of luck involved, particularly when you're writing horror. If you want to make money,
there's total luck. Tough. When we were talking about my first book, Forest of Shadows. Now that was unagented, sent in on the slush pile for forever. You know
4 years that's so crazy.
Yeah, thank God I wasn't banking on that. The thing that got it picked up off the slush pile and got accepted when he said the last chapter actually brought out. He goes, I was sad. He goes, you brought out an emotion that I hadn't read in another horror book in a long time. He goes, if I had the ability to cry, I would have cried.
If I had a heart, I'd have felt something.
Exactly. So who knew that you write a horror novel with like a sad last chapter and that's what gets the attention of an editor. Luck.
Yeah. No, it really is. And how many novels had you written before that one got picked up?
3. So
you didn't have any that you didn't want to send to anyone because you thought they sucked?
God, I did a lot of shitty like short stories in the 90s, and I would get them published on like these like horror webzines that would come out that on my AOL dial-up connection would take forever to even load.
Sure.
And they were just terrible. I mean, they were just awful. But they were like, they helped because if I read them, it's like, horrible, less horrible. Maybe I'll use this to line the cat's box or whatever. And then when I wanted to actually sit down and do a full-length novel, I did a romantic comedy. Was my first novel.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you settle on that?
I wanted to do something that took me completely out of my comfort zone. And at the time, my wife, she was really sick, and she was in the hospital for, oh my God, it had to be like 2.5 years, on and off. So I was living horror. I didn't need horror at the time. So literally, I'd go in my room and just turn on. Oh my God, I turn on David Sanborn that my friend gave me. Just listen to some cool light jazz and just write this romantic comedy. But it was a romantic comedy that also had like mentally ill people and private eyes and just weirdness. So, and the main character was named Jimmy Dean.
Is this one of those books that will never see the light of day?
Probably not.
Sure.
It wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't bad. It's just kind of sappy. But it all the strangeness that would come later and other things I wrote is there. That's another book that has no audience, because if people who like romance are going to be like, well, what the hell is wrong with this? And people who like strange books are going to go, what's with the romance?
Sure.
So, yeah, that one, I have it framed on my wall.
So you'd been writing for 10, 15 years on and off before you got published?
I worked in the phone company, in the shittiest job ever. And I had a friend of mine who he would sit next to me. He never talked very much, and just see him like tapping away. We were in a particular position where we had no clients, and we had nothing to do. But he was always writing. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And he goes, I'm writing a book, sci-fi book. I was like, regular people write books? Like, I thought like writers were like a
It's
different
like a mystical thing. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like in 1992. And he's the one who he said, yeah, I read this. He goes, you should check out this magazine, Cemetery Dance. They have a lot of good writers and stuff. And
They print that right up the road from me. Maybe.
do they?
Yeah, maybe 15-minute drive.
They bought a story of mine 4 years ago that's going to be in an anthology that I'm still waiting to see.
Yeah, I was going to submit to them because, they're right up the road. I could probably go up there and, tap his leg with a baseball bat and get him to print it. But
Right.
they're so backed up that
It's
4
crazy.
years? That's crazy.
It's 2011. Because I met one of the guys that worked for Cemetery Dance at a convention. We got to talking.
Shizmar?
No, it was Norm Prentice.
Okay.
And he said, yeah, send me a story. I'll give it to Richard and see if he likes it. And they bought it. And like 2 years later, I did all the author signage sheets that are going to go in the book. And I don't know when it's coming out. I think on my website it says coming soon in 2012. I don't want to change it. I like it there like that.
That's maybe the one negative that I've seen with the ebooks is anthologies don't do nearly as well as they used to. Ebooks are so cheap now. You can try an author for a couple bucks. You don't need to try an anthology of short stories for a couple bucks. You can just try a novel.
True.
So I wonder if maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
I always think with anthologies they would sell more because you have the power of all those authors promoting the book, but I've learned that a lot of authors really don't do much with promotion.
Yeah, they really don't. And it doesn't help that you have dicks like me who make full novels free. So, you can get my novel for free, or you can spend $5 on short stories.
You've got it figured out. You're like the crack. You have the crack dealer model.
That's what I'm trying to do.
For free? Now you want another taste? It's going to cost you, bitch.
That's what it says in my blurb, actually, in my description.
Dude, I am the Hunger series. I've had the third one lined up, and I keep pushing it off because I don't want it to end.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate that.
That's how much I love those two books. I'm like, I don't want to read the last one, but I do. Is it going to be a fourth?
A year ago, the answer was no, but I've actually got some ideas. There might be as many as 3 more, so I'm not sure.
All right, now I can read it and feel good about myself.
we'll see. The ideas have been coming lately. So, there was supposed to be more than 3 initially, but I wrote the first book and released it, and it was my worst release I'd had. It sold so poorly. I mean, it sold so poorly that I thought I was going to have to get a job.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because the transmission in my wife's car went out, like right at the same time I released that, and I'm looking at the sales, just thinking that it's over. Like, I spent a year and a half trying to give this writing thing a try. That's it.
Right.
And it ended up taking off just word of mouth a couple weeks later, but because it hadn't been selling, I started writing the second book. There was supposed to be a minimum of 2 more, but I had ideas for 4.
Right.
And because the first book was selling so poorly, I combined the second and third book into the second book, into Consumed, to just wrap it up. Because I didn't want to leave anybody hanging. There's not a cliffhanger on the end of Devoured, but I wanted to have a little more closure than that.
Yeah, there's definitely room for more.
So when I released Consumed, the whole thing just blew up, just completely blew up. And then I'm sitting there like, motherfucker, I used my ideas are gone. So I actually went and I wrote another book, and then I came back and wrote the third one. So I've been letting it percolate for about a year now. I think I finished the third book, so I'll probably go back and write some more. I just love the Lance and the Cass characters, so we'll see.
Oh, they're awesome. They are just awesome. I'm in love with Cass.
Another funny story. My wife randomly asked me, I think it was maybe after the third book came out, I guess somebody had asked her if Cass was based on her. And she was like, oh, yeah, and she's telling me this story. And I was like, she's not based on you. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, that sounded horrible.
Yeah.
Cass is so cool. I was like, oh, shit, all right. I'll get the mattress out and take it down to the basement.
You know what's funny? I don't think I've based any characters on my wife or my kids.
I haven't either. Just maybe some personality traits, but...
Oh, wait, I take that back. It happened to us when we got married and moved into where we are now. Because there's a ghost of a boy in our house. You see like a full-grown normal boy. It's so weird.
Wait. What?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear this. What?
This is my wife. When we got married, my wife is handicapped, so we always knew there'd be issues. But when a year into our marriage, her stomach, something happened to it, and we didn't know what it was. And when the doctors went in, she was full of gangrene.
Oh, how does that happen?
She had she ruptured part of her intestines, and then everything was pouring out of it, and just made everything toxic. Her whole insides were dying and rotting. And
this was a year after she married you?
Yeah. Look what I did to the lady.
Inside after marrying you?
You know, I made all the girls lesbians in college, and I almost killed the wife outside college.
I'm a douche. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, you're a thriller douche. So we moved to this place in '93, and she was really sick. I mean, from '93 to almost '96, she was in and out of hospitals constantly. So one night I'm in here, and I'm doing the dishes, and we're on the second floor. It's a 2-family house. We're on the second floor, and I'm doing the dishes, and where the kitchen is, there's the door leading into our apartment. And I look over, and there's a kid standing there. Like an 8-year-old. Apartment? In my apartment, just standing there looking at me. He's got short hair. He's wearing just a T-shirt and jeans. And I look at him like, I guess one of the neighborhood kids must have come upstairs. I didn't hear him because I had the radio on and stuff. So I go to say, yo, what are you doing in my apartment? And he runs into our bedroom where my wife is hooked up to these life support machines. I freak out because there's wires everywhere and tubes and stuff, and if this kid gets tangled up in them,
right,
it's going to hurt her. I get into the room, there's no one there but her. And I didn't tell a soul because I thought that if I said anything, people would say that the pressure had gotten to me and I was not fit to take care of my wife anymore.
Right.
Sure, I didn't tell her. She didn't need to know that, and she was literally
was asleep. She didn't see anything, or...
She slept, at that time, when I first started seeing him, she slept like 22 hours a day.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was rough. So I kept seeing him, again and again, and he was always like running through the apartment, but it doesn't make a sound, and he was always headed to her room. So about 96, she started feeling better. You know, we got her off life support, and you know, we had a baby a year later, so obviously everything worked out. But I was getting ready to go to work one day, and she says, you know, I always hated it when I was here hooked up to this machine and stuff, and you would go to work. And I'd say, you know, I hated leaving you too. She goes, yeah, I used to feel real lonely. She goes, but a lot of times this boy would come and sit with me, and I'd feel comforted, and I'd go back to sleep.
What?
Dude, every hair on my body, and I'm a hairy motherfucker, stood up on end.
That's why you write about Sasquatch.
I am so about Sasquatch because we're cousins.
So she didn't tell you this until later on, and you didn't tell her until later on, and then you had conjoining stories.
Yeah, we had our come to Jesus moment 3 years after we'd been seeing it all the time. And she thought it was in her head. And I actually at that point thought it was in my head. I thought, oh, I know my blood pressure, I think at one time was 200 over 160.
Ooh.
Oh, I was just in a bad way. So, you know, when she first said that, I said, well, describe the boy. And dude, she described the same kid I'd been seeing. I was like, oh. Yeah. So she got well. We didn't see him again. And then in Samantha was born 99. So around 2001 or 2002, my wife was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And he came back. And we saw him again for like another year while she was getting treatment. And now, for the last 3 years, my wife's been sick with a bunch of other things. And she sees him. I don't see him like I used to see him, but I see him as like a blur or sometimes a weird light. It's funny because when Jack comes to the house, he's always like, I want to meet the boy. And last year, there was one day I was like vacuuming in the living room, and I saw him run right behind me. And it was like 15 minutes before Jack got there. And I'm like, oh, Jack, you missed your chance.
He just ran by.
Yeah, just ran right behind me. He went from my living room into my kid's room, and then, I mean, we're on the top floor, so.
And then you went and changed your underwear?
Now, here's the weird thing, man. There was no fear. Whenever I would see him, there was a sense of comfort. I was never scared that he was there.
Is that because he only shows up when your wife is sick?
We think. The family has a theory that my mother-in-law had 2 stillborn babies, and her theory is that that's one of Amy's brothers.
That's
coming
a
to watch
crazy
over.
theory.
I mean, to me, I think more it's just a product of our subconscious, that you create your own spirit or guardian angel. Under times of extreme stress, which we've been under over the last 20-something years, it just comes out. I don't know. I honestly don't know what it is. Like, people want me to like pin it down. Is it a ghost? I'm like, there are no children that have died in this house or on this block. The block is only 6 houses on it. I've checked the history. I don't know who the hell this kid is, but he's here.
And you wrote The Waiting based on that.
Yeah, Sam Hain doesn't do true stories, so I wrote The Waiting, and I just fictionalized, our names and some of the things. Like, I gave closure to it, where there is no closure.
Had to put like a third act on it.
Yeah, I mean, we still don't know what it is, but he's...
So the third act wasn't, I was vacuuming, he ran behind me, that's the end of the book.
And then we filmed the Monster Men and got really drunk.
And then I got drunk.
Jack once again missed the bowl.
House always smells when that bastard comes over.
So
wow,
yeah,
that's really interesting. Well, I guess I have 2 questions then. One, what the hell are you doing to your wife that she keeps getting so sick?
She
allergic to you?
She might be. She has autoimmune diseases. She's got something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that affects all her bones, dislocate, and her connective tissue deteriorates.
Wow.
We found out she has lupus that had been undiagnosed for years because it mirrors what the other thing was.
Somebody who actually has lupus, because that's always what everyone thinks it is and ends up not being lupus.
Yeah.
That's what I learned from House.
She has lupus. And when lupus gets really bad, they treat it with radiation. That she did 2 years of radiation treatments with lupus, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. And then she has fibromyalgia and a couple other weird things.
That's rough.
It's like everything that she has is all about her body is killing itself. Like it doesn't. It's like I don't like this. So I'm just gonna do everything I can to make it miserable.
And this started a year after you got married.
She'd always had this. I mean, when we got married, we knew.
Oh,
We knew
so
there would be
I
problems.
keep trying to find ways to blame it on you.
Thanks,
You're
bastard.
welcome. Make you feel better about it. Second question is, with the boy, do you have a piano in your house and you play two keys and just go, they hate this, while having a little wand in your hand that you're squeezing the end while Sigourney Weaver is beside you? Do you ever do that?
Sigourney Weaver is down here right now. Keep it up, honey.
That's the bedroom, but nothing ever happens in there.
I am forbidden from doing anything because I have a really high tech like digital audio recorder and cameras and stuff, but I have been forbidden to look deeper into this than what it is.
Why is that?
My daughters don't want to know. My wife says, "What if you piss him off?" She goes, "He's not harming anybody. In fact, when I see him, I feel good." So, except last year, she was in our kitchen one night, and I'm out in the living room, and it's late. It was like 12:30, 1 o'clock, late for old people, and she screams, just screams, because she went in the kitchen to get some. The lights are on and everything, and I come running in, and I'm like, "What happened?" She goes, "He wouldn't let me leave." She was trying to like get around him to go out, and she said he looked really mad at me, and she just totally flipped out. I was like,
Jesus.
"Well, he's gone now, so let's watch some Kardashians, baby."
Does that drive like you and Jack nuts? I mean, you guys are getting drunk recording a horror podcast, and you can't do anything?
No, I don't. You know what? I almost don't want to know either. I think that's why you see all those ghost shows. They go to other people's places. They don't want to know that what shit's in their house.
Or in the case of one pumped up Guido, you try to fight the ghost.
I'll kick your ass, mother effer.
That show is... we're talking about Ghost Adventures for anybody who doesn't know. If you want to laugh, get a six-pack, watch Ghost Adventures. So ridiculously fake.
And then watch Grave Encounters as they mock Ghost Adventures.
Yes. Grave Encounters is hilarious. I actually wrote a book called The Gate, which also kind of riffs on the ghost hunters kind of guys. So I shouldn't say... Wait, I don't know. Can I get sued for saying Ghost Hunters is fake? I don't know. It's elaborately plotted.
There you go. I actually just made fun of paranormal TV shows in Island of the Forbidden, my book that just came out, because to me, if the paranormal is real and if the paranormal is really pissed off, they don't want you around poking around. And they're going to make themselves known.
Yeah, those shows are just so ridiculous. And my wife, we had a couple weird things happen at our old apartment, and I was ready. I want to do full seance. Like, I'll tear the carpet up, put chalk on the concrete. Like, I want to know. You know, if something happens, I want to know. I'm the guy in the horror movie who dies immediately. That's me.
Honey, I got a goat. Give me a knife. We're going to get this thing out of here.
Yeah, that's me. Let's get the chickens. We're cutting some heads off. Yeah, that's totally me.
She told you no, right?
She's totally not cool with it at all. At all. I was going to do it in the basement when she wasn't home, and she got really pissed. So.
Dude, they are way smarter than we are. They save us from ourselves.
Yeah, there's a reason women live longer than men. It's not genetic, at least unless you're not counting from the neck down. So
it's all about poor choices, and we are the masters of poor choices.
And the fact that we're on the internet now, just pounding beers.
The interwebs. Right. I put a catheter in so I could do this all night if you want.
Wow, that's man style right there.
I'm committed, damn it.
I'm actually starting to get pretty low. I'm a little disappointed here.
I felt more.
Wow, you are committed. Is that a Seahawks hat behind you?
That is.
So you had a rough February.
That was very rough. You can still hear my no circling around Saturn.
Still begging for the Marshawn Lynch run?
Oh, my God. Oh, that reminded me of my Dorchester. The ring was right there, and they took it away from me.
That's That was rough, man. I felt bad for you.
You know what? I don't care. I am a Seahawks, Mets, and Islanders fan. I hadn't seen what a championship was like since I was a teenager. So they gave me one last year. I'm set for 30 years.
How are you a Seahawks fan? You live in New York. Have you always lived in New York?
I have. When I caught a game in 1980, I think they were playing Miami. And when I saw Jim Zorn as Steve Largent, that was it. I was done. I used to go to the library to get results from Seahawks.
Really?
Yeah, I was super committed.
And
So
you've
I've been
been
a fan.
hanging in there for 35 years?
Yep.
34 years till you won one? Holy shit.
Huge. When they lost the Super Bowl against the Steelers, man, I did not watch football for a year.
I'm a Steelers fan, so I was just like, another ring. See, I don't have to wait that long. Every couple years we win, so.
Do you admit that that game was given to you by fucking 2 bad calls?
So I'm going to stop this broadcast now before we get into a fist fight.
Oh wait, hold on. I gotta leave. Ben Roethlisberger is raping my wife.
Son of a bitch. I also see in the background you have the 3D Friday the 13th. Is that what are they, McFarlane posters or something? The little.
Yeah, it's the original movie poster, but yeah, it's 3D.
I have that too. I absolutely love those things, and they stopped making them for some reason.
Yeah, I wish I had more. I wish I bought more, but
I have that. I have Nightmare on Elm Street. I have Alien.
Alien I would kill for.
It lights up too. It's pretty cool. I've got a couple others. I think I have 6 total, but I can't remember what they all are.
The thing I got for Christmas I love the most are my authentic drive-in movie speakers.
Wow. Do you
Hooked
do
up to
anything with
nothing.
those? Oh, just sit on your desk.
Yeah.
Paperweight.
I'm a huge fan of drive-ins. I mean, we vacation intentionally in places that have drive-in movie theaters. I mean, we're insane for drive-ins.
Wow. So your wife is totally okay with that?
Absolutely, she's the same. I'm telling you, I told you earlier, everyone thinks she's sane. She's more effed up than I could ever be.
So how did you find a wife who's into exactly the same horror movies you are? I mean, people who are into horror as deeply as you are, and like Jack is, and I am, it's a pretty rare breed.
I made her. I created her. She came from my rib. No. She was actually, I worked in a vitamin store in a mall when I was almost 19. And I had a bad breakup, and my manager was like, well, what kind of girl do you like? And like I was like naming like just physical attributes. And I came back 3 days later, and he goes, I hired the girl. The girl's down there. Just check down there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, the girl you described. I went around the mall, and I found somebody.
No.
Literally, she was hired so I could date her. And
What?
I'm not kidding you. And I spent
You
6
send that guy like a check every year?
No, I'm going to maybe choke him out. No, I'm just kidding.
I killed him 5 years ago.
So, yeah, when I met her, she was 16, and then we started dating when she was 17, and she had never watched movies.
What?
So, yeah, she wasn't a movie.
What?
Dude, she liked disco and no movies. I was with her for a year. She was into heavy metal and horror movies. It's all it took.
Nice.
I took her to a David Lee Roth concert. That just totally, she was like, fuck disco. What am I listening to this for? And we used to go to the
Dave
video
has that
store.
effect.
Yeah. It was when he had Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan in the band. It was just an amazing show. But yeah, we used to rent like 4 or 5 horror movies and just watch them all day. I mean, we watched every horror movie the video store had. I mean, she got hooked.
That's I put my wife through that. She likes horror movies too, but now that Netflix has made everything so ridiculously accessible, the shit we watch sometimes, I'm like, please don't divorce me. I thought it would be better.
There's a lot of times where my wife would be like, hey, let's watch a horror movie. And I'm like, can we watch something that somebody put 5 minutes of thought into right now? I'm just not in the mood.
Yeah, the found footage craze has made it pretty easy to get less than stellar things on Amazon Prime and Netflix.
You know, although I will say last year was a good year for found footage. There were a surprising number of found footage movies I liked.
I think last year was there were better found footage movies in horror than there probably were traditional horror movies.
I do a top 13 list every year, and in December I'm like, what the hell am I going to put on this list? You know, it was hard to find. I was like, can I find
Cake of
5?
Deborah Logan, probably, right? Afflicted.
You know what? And I left off Afflicted. I completely forgot about it.
Really? That was a great movie.
I made my number 1 was Exists, because it's Bigfoot. And it was
you and your Bigfoot movie. Bigfoot and aliens, right?
Dude, that's my sweet spot.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I think I was abducted by Bigfoot and aliens.
And you're hairy.
This is I got this Bigfoot from the Cryptozoology Museum.
Where is the Cryptozoology Museum?
It is in Portland, Maine. Hang on. You sit right there, Squatchy. It's in Portland, Maine. Lauren Coleman is a cryptozoologist. You probably see, I know you've seen him on Monsters in America and History Channel, and he's even been on Ancient Aliens.
Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
I forgot about that show.
But he's got a museum. It's got all these displays of Bigfoot casts and coelacanths and the Dover Demon, and because of him, I wrote a book about the Dover Demon that comes out in the fall.
Of course you did. You've got books coming out constantly.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
But my book Montauk Monster is now in the museum. It's on display with his cast of the Montauk Monster.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that to me is like, that makes it all worth it.
It's like a drop the microphone. I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out. You can take my Squatch.
Yeah. So I think I did watch the episode with your top 10 list, and it was like aliens and Bigfoot dominate for you. How does that happen? Like, anything with Bigfoot, did you like it as a kid?
No, I thought Bigfoot was like bull crap growing up. Like, that was like, to me, I would believe everything but Bigfoot. But
do you believe in Bigfoot? Like, there's one out there?
I don't know. I hope there is. I hope there's one of every monster that we think of out there.
It would be cool. The argument's always, where are the bodies, right?
Well, you know, I heard it said on Bloody Good Horror that obviously there's no bodies because they eat their dead. So there you go.
Problems. Big shit piles.
Exactly. I'm a Bigfoot scatologist.
So have you ever gone out into the woods and gone, what do they call it, squatching?
I have never. I live right outside New York City, so there is no squatching anywhere.
Go hoboing?
But my interest in aliens came in the 80s because we lived by the Hudson River, and for a period of several years in the 80s, there were UFOs everywhere in the sky. Nobody knows where. I was in my mother's car with my girlfriend, who's my wife now, waiting for my sister to come out from Babies R Us at the top of a parking garage, and we were by Route 87, which is a major thruway in New York. And it was a clear night, and I remember we looked over at the thruway, and all traffic stopped. Everybody had stopped and pulled over to the side of the road and was out of their cars. And so we got out of our car, and there was an object that was the size of a freaking city-state in the sky, blocking out all the stars, that was just moving without a sound over the city. And it went over to the New Jersey side and then lit up like a Roman candle and went straight up into the sky. And there were 250,000 calls in to that event.
You're like a lightning rod for paranormal shit.
Dude, I tend to think, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, it's like people who see you never see one thing. It's if you see one thing, something opens up and you see others.
You don't think it's the cocaine?
I think it could be the Dilaudid. Cocaine, I don't want to be wired. I just want to be totally zonked.
It's not those handfuls of mushrooms you eat every morning.
Never. I've grown. They don't do anything to me.
So when you say you see one thing, you see a bunch. Have you seen how much stuff have you seen?
I mean, we saw that. That I saw with my wife and my mother and 225,000 other people.
What was the event called? I'll have to look that one up. Do you know?
They don't even call it anything. It just, if you look up, it was in 1987. It was in the fall of '87. If you just look up Yonkers UFO, you should find it. There's like a couple things on the internet for it.
Okay.
Well, we've seen the thing here. The thing. Don't get pissed at me, kid.
Go back to
I was
bed, honey.
Yeah, I was in Sturbridge Village, which is a preserved colonial village in Massachusetts, and we were in a mill, and I saw the shadow of full-on dude just walk right by me, and just walked
Really?
into like the wall. Yeah, I was there with one other person, and I was like, "Did you see that?" And she was like, "Oh my God, I thought I was imagining that."
Wow.
Yeah, that was weird. But then I just walked out.
How do you not just like drop a bomb in your pants every time something like this happens?
Dude, I don't know. I don't care. Jack and I went to, oh no, it wasn't Jack. It was me and my friend Anthony. There is a bistro in Manhattan down in the village, and under the bistro is a well, and the well was the site of the first murder case in New York City. Aaron Burr was the lawyer, and what happened is some guy got pissed off at his fiance. He chopped her up and threw her in this well, and the well itself was the inspiration for The Ring, the story of her apparition coming out of the well.
Really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So we got there, and I was doing an interview on some podcast or some radio. Oh, it was a radio show. And at the end, they said, "Oh, we don't let the public in, but we'll let you see the well." So I thought I'd be looking down into like a hole, but it was like this well that was built up like 7 feet high, and it's from the 1700s. So I got up, I looked inside it. There was like Mylar balloons and fucking Budweiser cases in there, or whatever. So they turned off the lights and they let us do some EVPs. I had my thing up on the well, whatever. Nothing happened. So we went back upstairs, and about, I don't know, half an hour in, I said, "Oh, I got to go to the bathroom." And then I went down. I snuck down by myself in the pitch black. And I just sat there, and I'm like, if you're in there, come on out here. I said, "Don't be afraid." I'm like talking to this friggin' well in the dark, waiting for something to happen. And I'm like going, like when I was done, I'm like, "What is the matter with you? Like, why are you doing this?"
You're the first guy in the horror movie.
Yeah. And I'm like the idiot who goes alone.
Right.
I did
Jason's not out there. It's just a camp.
Yeah. I'm going to go skinny dipping by
Let's smoke
myself.
some weed. Yeah.
I did that with the Queen Mary, too. I went on the Queen Mary on a business trip, and it was off-season. And I checked into the front desk, and I said, "Yeah, I'm a horror writer and stuff." And they're like, "Oh, well, we'll put you in room whatever." And I was like, "All right, well, what's the significance of that room?" They're like, "Well, nothing with that, except there's nobody on that side of the ship."
Oh, nice.
So, and I mean, you go, and like, the Queen Mary is really old and warped, so like, even though it's a straight shot down the hallway, you can't see the other end because everything is like bowed out. And then they took me on a tour of the inside of the ship and downstairs in the old pool and stuff, and they were doing divining rod. They were doing like everything. The flashlights were flashing on and off when nobody was touching them. And then when everything was done at 1 a.m, I had to go walk this long hallway into my room where I knew there was not a soul anywhere near me in the ship. And I turned on the TV and the light, and I went to sleep. I went to sleep like a baby. I'm like, well, as long as Three's Company's on, nothing can happen.
So you were there by yourself?
Yeah, all by myself. And then I woke up like 4 a.m, and I went exploring the rest of the ship on my own.
Oh, man, that's too killer. Where is that at? Is that California?
Mm-hmm. It's in Long Beach in California.
Okay.
It was awesome. It was awesome to do.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. See, I really haven't had anything happen. A couple weird things at my old place. Like a mouse was moving. Some weird things with the shelf, but nothing that was like freaking me out. I'm one of those guys that like the older I get, the more I'm like, this is some bullshit. But then I talk to guys like you, and I'm like, I just got to hang out with you for a while.
But like I say, I don't necessarily say this is all ghosts. I think a lot of it is just that part of our brain, that 90% part of our brain that we don't use, and you just tap into another part. Like
Sure.
Lucy. You see that movie?
Yes, unfortunately.
That's Scarlett Johansson, so I don't care.
Actually, I thought that was a really cool idea. My novel Ash, that series, the Asher Benson series, is based on a guy who can do things with his mind. I just felt like Lucy went a little. Did you see it?
Yeah, I like how she spent all that energy to make a freaking little thumb drive.
Right, that's kind of what I'm like getting at. Like the ending, I was like, what?
I am the
And
most.
also, when she starts doing all this, what the hell? Morgan Freeman is like, someone says, "What's happening?" He's like, "She's building a computer." Like, how the fuck do you know that?
I know.
What?
That looks like no computer I've ever seen.
It's like tar. What are you talking about? I know you're God, but what the hell?
Yeah, she used all that power to become like a Staples. So here's your glittery thumb drive.
I thought it was a really cool idea. I just the ending kind of lost me there towards the end of it. But yeah, no, I love that mind stuff. That was always some of my favorite stuff with Unsolved Mysteries too. They would do some really cool things like that.
Robert Stack.
Hell yeah, man! I could watch Unsolved Mysteries all day. Just his narration alone.
Oh, in the trench coat.
He's
After
walking
this,
down an alley. Yeah.
I'm going to the movies with Paul Rubens later.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's great.
When they filmed an Unsolved Mysteries about the Hudson Valley UFOs, and when they were recreating the UFO, people were calling in saying there was a UFO in the sky.
Of course. Of course. How were they recreating it? Like spotlights or something?
They had something rigged up on like a crane, and it was lit up and stuff, and they were doing things, and people were like, "There's a UFO in the sky," because everybody was. You have no idea. People in certain areas of Westchester, New York, were so skittish for like 3 years. It was crazy.
Because of the event you were talking about?
Everything they saw, like there were, the triangle UFOs that people see all the time now. That was new, and they were here, which I guarantee were stealth bombers.
Sure.
But people were seeing. They were seeing triangles. They were seeing these large things that we saw that blocked out the sky. Nobody, and it was just constant. And they would always say it was guys flying in formation with little tiny single-engine planes.
Yeah. What did they say it was over Phoenix? Flares or something? It's like
Military
bullshit.
flares, yeah.
Bullshit.
You've seen that video, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, those aren't flares.
No.
Exactly. I don't, it might just be something else they were doing, but that was like the worst excuse ever.
UFOs are interesting, man, because people see these things all the time. There's a lot of proof out there, but it's weird because with all the editing that you can do now with video and pictures, you can't believe anything.
You go on YouTube, and there's some really convincing-looking stuff that is completely fake.
Yeah, I think the only way to prove it is to go back to the old stuff.
Get abducted. That'll do it. Prove it to you. Speaking of, when are we going to get a Hunter Shea alien book? We've got the Bigfoot book.
We have, well, the Dover Demon is close to it. The Dover Demon comes out through Sam Hain in the fall, and that's a thing that it's a creature that was seen in Dover, Massachusetts, which is this affluent little town. In 1977, over 2 nights, 6 different witnesses that we know of came forth, and what they described was what we call today a gray alien, basically. But it was years before that was an icon. Nobody knew what that image was. And actually, it was almost a year before Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out, and Spielberg came out with those kind of like big-headed, large-eyed aliens. And nobody who's ever seen it has recanted their story. I talked to Lauren Coleman, the cryptozoologist, who was the guy, the first person on the scene there, and he goes, out of all the things I've ever investigated, he goes, it's the only one I can't poke any holes in. So when I wrote that book, it's a mix. It's a horror and it's a sci-fi. I threw in a lot of weird stuff in there. So it's close to aliens, but I do want to do an alien book one day.
So what was that, September, October?
I think it's September so far.
All right. Well, before I let you go here, you've got 3 books coming out this year. When is the first one?
The first one came out in January. It's Island of the Forbidden. That's my ghost hunter book with my ghost girl, Jessica Backman.
Which is the 3rd in a series, you were telling me.
Right. The 3rd in a series, but all can be read standalone. Everyone's a standalone. So you could go in any direction you want. You're going to get the same thing.
It's the main character is the main character in all 3 books, just at a different age?
The girl is the main character in Island of the Forbidden, and the one before it's Sinister Entity, but she's a minor character in the first one, Forest of Shadows.
Okay, so you're kind of getting her growing up, dealing with all this crazy shit.
Yeah, those books to me, the ghosts to me are secondary. The whole concept is what happens to a person who has the abilities and experience what she experiences. How does that change your life?
Sure, that's the
You're not
best
gonna,
kind. That's what most horror writers don't get. They make it about the monsters or the ghosts or the aliens. It's not about that. It's about how it affects the people.
right? To me, you're not going to be like Zach Bagans and experience something and just move on to the next place and punch a ghost.
Right. Gel your hair up and go get in another ghost fight.
I wish I had the hair. I could do the peacock. Uh, no, I mean it's going to profoundly affect you. So every book, Jessica is like she starts one way and ends a different way, and it's just this progression of just how it completely alters her life.
Those are on my list. I'm really looking forward to reading those.
I'll send them to you.
Yeah. We don't authors don't pay for books. What am I thinking?
Hell no. What do you? We don't have the money.
Yeah, really. We write horror. So what's next on the docket?
Then in July it's Tortures of the Damned.
I love the name of that. You need to get like a movie poster made with that. That would be great.
You will never read that title without hearing me do that. That's my post-apocalyptic novel, so that comes out in July, and then Dover Demon will come out in September, and that's it. That's enough of me. I'm sick of me.
Two are Sam Hain. One is, would you say Apex?
Pinnacle.
Pinnacle. What?
Yeah, that'll be the Pinnacle paperback, and then next year I'll probably have two Sam Hains and one Pinnacle, and maybe one or two others. Next year might be insane. I don't know.
You're a machine, man. I don't know how you do that with a full-time job.
You know what? I don't know either. I miss a lot of things that go on around me.
No, you write as much as I do, and I know where my time goes, Netflix and YouTube, but...
I want to be you!
Yeah, well, drink cheap beer, live in a piece of shit house. It can be done.
Your house looks fine from what I can see over here.
Yeah, I painted this room before I started the podcast. So
did you? Podcast blue.
Put my beautiful covers up.
That's what's back there because I couldn't see. Oh, that's cool, man.
That's the extent of my self-promotion. Yeah, I got a couple covers up there. So
that's the way to do it. I'm just surrounded by clutter of freaking toys.
You've got some interesting stuff back there. We're gonna have to go through that sometime. You guys should do a whole Monster Men just showing off your collections of crazy shit.
You know what? That's a good idea, actually.
I mean, how much do you guys have?
Too much. Like Jack's like the bobblehead guy.
Okay.
Jack is crazy about bobblehead, and he also gets a lot of like coffee table books on different things. Like we just did one on the Women of Hammer movies and stuff. So that's his thing. I'm just all over the map. I mean, I got a lot of Creature from the Black Lagoon stuff. Because that's my favorite Universal monster. But, I mean, I got signed pictures of Elvira. I got sci-fi stuff. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, you guys should do an episode just showing off your collections.
You know what?
Each one of your sets has like a ton of new shit on it each time.
My daughter just got me, this isn't necessarily horror, she got me a print of a Tom Waits drawing.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, really cool. I love Tom Waits. I've loved Tom Waits since I was a kid. Nothing like being 12 and trying to sound like Tom Waits.
Yeah, that would be a really interesting episode. I'd like to see that. So
done.
All right, man. I'll let you go here. I've been pulling your ear too long.
Dude, this has been awesome. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, it's been a good time. So check out Hunter. Give us your what's your Twitter, Facebook. Give us all your shit.
Well, you can go to www.huntershea.com. That's Shea with an A. Facebook, it's Hunter Shea 1. Twitter, Hunter Shea 1. Because there's some other Hunter Shea dude. I don't know. I got to get rid of him. But if you go to my website, everything is on there. I've got my blog. I've got all the links to my books and excerpts on there, and you can catch the Monster Men through there. So it's Grand Central Station for everything Hunter Shea related. More than you'll ever want.
I was just looking at some of your books the other day because, like I said, I've gotten through my stack of crap I have to read for other authors, and some of your books are really priced well considering they're traditionally published. I was surprised.
Yeah, I mean,
books are affordable,
especially the ebook on the ebook side of things. I And the trade paperbacks aren't so. I mean, I go to trade shows and stuff where some guy that you never heard of who will tell you, my mother said it's the scariest book I ever read, and seriously, I've been told this. And then their trade paperback that's 110 pages is like $35.
Yeah, but he's gonna sign it for you, man.
I know. I actually asked the guy once. I said, can you sign this by dipping your nuts in ink and giving me a sack sign?
Did you consider it?
He looked like he was considering it. He was like, well, how many are you going to buy? I'm like, I just need one, man. I just want to have the only guy who has a nutsack sign.
He was like, but I don't have any ink. I can't do it.
Exactly.
That's hilarious. All right, so check out Hunter's stuff. I'll put some links to the Monster Men and your website and everything in the show notes here, and people can click through and check everything out. But I would definitely, if you want a short, crack-fueled read, check out Swamp Monster Massacre. I even have the audiobook. That guy does some great accents and stuff in it. So,
dude, I love the way he did that. That's like, it was perfect. It was exactly the way I pictured it in my head. That kind of slow drawl.
Yeah, he was great. I really loved the intro to that book when you were describing, I think it was a guy's skull was collapsing, and or had collapsed, and the guy was thinking that I told that guy not to do. Was it Coke?
Coke, yeah.
All that Coke, maybe like his skull fragile or something.
It does. It eats away your
that.
sinuses.
I love
So
that.
if you know a Coke addict who's getting out of control, just punch him in the nose.
The guy's like dead, smashed on the floor. I told him not to do that Coke, and then he killed him. That's great. All right, Hunter, I appreciate it. I'll have to have you in, again on soon. It's been a good time, and I like pounding beers like this.
Yeah, we'll have you on Monster Men and pound beers on the side.
Looking forward to it. Everyone check out Hunter's stuff. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Arrgh.